Okay, so today I'm working on my own version of Project One, um, which is basically just finding a photo to restore online. Um, if you are one of my students, I see I have no viewers now, so if you're one of my students, you're rewatching this, then please refer to my last stream, and there are videos of that up in Canvas for the requirements. But right now I'm just going to go ahead and do a search and see if I can find myself an image to work on. So let's see. Okay. This one I remember I liked. I don't know if I saved it, but let's see. Antique damaged photo. It's a pretty good one, but I think I want something with a little bit more interesting subject matter or background. If it comes down to it, I um, could add that in myself. But what I really like is some of these colorized history photos. I think they're just really neat to see something that we would normally be in black and white be placed in color. So those are pretty cool. I'm going to see if I can find something with a little bit more kind of historical reference points. Maybe I'll see if there's something here in Florida. Possibly, possibly not. That could be interesting. Taking a current photo that was made vintage and then restoring it. That could be interesting. That one looks scary, whatever it is. And to keep a good image size here. It definitely doesn't meet the size requirements. This photo really isn't damaged at all. I guess there are some scratches, but I guess that's the photo and not the car. There are some dots. There's some minor damage here, but I think I'd like to work with something that needs a little bit more work and using the tools that we've talked about. This one could be interesting. To add color back into it, but it's not my family, so maybe I'll find something a little bit more historical. I'm just being a little picky here because I can be. I've got time. This one seems interesting. I'll save that page. Seven-year-old newspaper boy. It's interesting, but the background is just so blurry. So blurry. See if there's anything similar to this. That one could be interesting too. I like the idea of the kid and the dog. The background is pretty non-existent, but I could always add something in there. Dog has a leash. Oh. Maybe keep that one marked too. And I've reached a dead end in the search for one similar to. This one could be interesting, but it just doesn't have the resolution. Let's see. I seem to have found this group of skiing images. Hmm. And of course, I'm way away from Florida right now. Not even close to Florida, but let's just start the search again. Let's start it again and see what we see. Antique damaged photo, Florida. And now it's just showing the actual antiques. Let's do old, and okay. I'm just going to pick one of these and click the view more to get a little bit more selection. Kind of like some of these kid ones. They can be interesting. Here's another kid with a dog, but the resolution is too low. This one could be interesting. Yep, and then a new tab, and then I want to search for more similar to this. Size larger than 4 megapixels. Is this a drawing? Looks like a drawing. This one's quite damaged. I think it's a little bit too much for our purposes. Huh. Got a guy feeding a pig. And obviously, so this tells me that this is a photo of a photo, right? This photo was not scanned in. Somebody took a picture of it, but I think this is quite interesting. It's going to take a little bit of work to do. Is it too much though? It's hard to say. Let's see. So I've got almost 20 minutes in here. I've got to pick something. So I've got this girl in the hat, a kid with a dog, and a guy feeding a pig. The thing is, even this photo is a little blurry here. Like the original itself even wasn't great. I think I'm gonna stay away from this. This just needs a lot, and like the original is kind of blurry. Not a great quality photo. Let me just peruse a few more here. I'll cut myself off in a couple minutes. This one could also be interesting. It's not as damaged, but it would be a lot of work to do. Is this a... there's just no central figure there. I'm giving myself until 20 after. and I'll cut myself off. A Pearl Harbor image could be interesting also. Those all seem to not need too much restoration though. Okay, so I'm going to pick between the little girl with the hat and the boy with the dog. This one, now I'm thinking about which one like gives me some more room to add stuff into the background or to let it be manipulated. She's kind of on her own. There's two figures here. What shall I do? This boy is so serious though. I think I'll go with the boy and the dog. Why not? Okay, so I'm going to save this image and I'll make a Project 1 folder here. Okay, save the original image and just going to open that file up. Okay, I've got it in Photoshop now. So now I'm just going to save it, right? So I'll save this as a Photoshop file. Okay, and we'll get started. So I've got my background. I'm going to make a folder here for original images. Put a copy of the background in there. And this one I can get rid of. Okay, and now my copy is what I start working with. So here we go. Obviously there's some spotting here, there's scratches, there's this external like kind of frame, so I think I'm just going to get rid of that, but I'm not going to. Let me look at my size here, image size. So I'm going to change this to 300 dpi, right? With that, I'm going to turn resampling off because I don't want to actually upsize it, you know, over 3 times. What I'm going to do is I'm keeping the same image pixels, just changing the format to 300 dpi. Okay, and that gives me an 8:13 picture, which is plenty large image. This was scanned in at quite high resolution, so I'm going to crop this down to just get rid of the frame. And what I'm going to do when I crop is I'm going to turn, make sure that delete crop pixels is not selected, because I want to keep that just in case. I want to keep all of the original in there. So I'm just going to crop this down to get rid of any of the white border that's there. Got some letters going over the carpet. I can crop that out. Okay, and left a little white on the left. I keep as much of my original photo as possible, but without keeping any of that extra in there. Okay, so I call this layer spot removal, and just start getting rid of some of these spots. I'll start off using the patch tool. That'll let me get some of the larger areas. So let's just try getting some of this, see what we end up with. I'm trying to line it up a little. And some of these spots, like I might even not use this background at all. So I'm just kind of getting rid of some of the major stuff, and I'll think about it a little bit while I'm working. May decide to just get rid of the background totally. Might as well get rid of some of the big ones while I'm at it. There's another big spot right here. So notice how what's happening is it's trying to, the spot removal tool, I'm getting these little like pieces of white here. The spot removal tool kind of tries to blend it with the left. So I've selected a little bit of white in my original, so it's like it's trying to blend it with the side. So I need to make sure I'm not selecting any of the background at all when I select this spot. Okay, good enough. Another big spot here. Okay, so that's actually part of the call. That's not a spot. There's a couple little spots here. Nothing big. Okay, so what I can go in now and do is start removing some scratches. So I'm already thinking that I'm going to be replacing this background, so I'm just not worrying about that part. Just going to focus on fixing the scratches that are in here. And so the best way I think to do scratches is to do the healing brush tool, and like especially where there's areas very close to the scratch, what you can do is just select the source being like exactly 90 degrees above where you start. So especially where there's lines and there's a pattern here, if I do it exactly above where I started, then as I go across, it should be lined up to kind of fill in the pattern appropriately and get it matched a little bit. Okay, so I'm just gonna select right above, just pull it over. It wasn't lined up there. You can tell when you're not lined up because it'll be quite visible in the patterns. So just filling in all the spots and scratches. And it's good to like zoom out every once in a while. You don't need to, like if I'm in here working at this level of detail, I'm going to see so much more than I really need. I'm zoomed in 600% right now. So that's just, there's no need. Just zoom out every once in a while. Make sure you're focusing on stuff that's actually visible at a reasonable viewing size. So like this scratch here, there's a scratch here. You want to focus on the visible stuff for sure. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time. Don't want to waste your time. So as I'm going through this, I'm keeping in mind the pattern on this skirt. You might say you're calling it a boy, but it's wearing a skirt, and that's true. Back, I think, before the 1800s or 1900s, probably back in the 19th century, up until the age of about 4 or 5, boys would very often be dressed in skirts. I honestly think it was to make it easier to clean them if they went in their diaper, if they wore diapers at the time. I think that's what it was. Like once they were at a point where they were going to the restroom on their own, maybe they would get gender, I want to say gender appropriate, but gender for the times, gender appropriate clothing. But if you look at old paintings and stuff, you'll notice that a lot of the time boys are wearing dresses. I personally think it's because it just made it easier to change their diapers. But I've had some art history teachers tell me that they were afraid that birds of prey would actually take the child if it were male. And so I've had some art history teachers try to tell me that it was them camouflaging males as females so that birds of prey would not take them. I don't know if I believe that. But it's been told. That's what someone along the way has told me. I'm just keeping in mind the pattern here and using that to fill in areas of the pleats that may have scratches or spotting. Notice like it gives me a preview of what it's going to use, so it's quite easy to line it up when you need to. Okay, so the skirt looks mostly there. I'm noticing just a few dots that I'll go in and fix here. A few more spottings. I just realized I forgot to desaturate. So I definitely want to image, adjustments, and desaturate. And then that just pulls all that yellow tone out of the photo so that I can, when it comes to colorizing, you know, that's not interfering with the color that's being applied back in. Oops. I'm finding in some spots the brush tool isn't, you know, getting it quite dark enough, or is blending a little bit too much with the background. So in those cases, the clone stamp tool works well. This nice soft clone stamp tool so that the edges aren't too defined where it's been filling in. Once you have a larger area kind of corrected, then you can use a larger brush and use that as a source and start fixing kind of large swaths a little bit more effectively and quickly. I'm going to use a little bit of the burn tool just to kind of darken this area and get the tone a little bit more even after doing the corrections. Okay, then I'll start on the other arm. Maybe that was a little bit too much. Step back on that a little bit here. What I'll do is I'll instead do an adjustment layer on top of this, and that'll kind of help get the tone a little better. Okay, so I've got the skirt, this side of the blouse. I'll get this side now. Let's go back to the clone stamp tool. Maybe I should mute my mic when I sneeze like that, huh? I'll try to remember that. Okay, so now let's go ahead and work on his face. That gets a little bit difficult. I think we'll just use a small clone stamp brush and keep the source of the correction very close in proximity to where you're actually applying it, because what you don't want is to like change the contours of the face by changing where the shadows and stuff are. So you always want to try to keep the contours of the face the same, otherwise it can start looking quite weird. So just a small brush very close to the original, or using a source close to what you're repairing usually works best. I don't know if you all can hear that. There's a vacuum going out there. We had a, I want to say small, quite large water leak happen from the floor I'm on, which is the second floor, to the first floor today, and they've been out there trying to clean up and fix up all day. Things like the face and lips are areas you really want to be careful with. You can definitely get into a little bit more detail in these areas because it's because we pay so much attention to the face and lips. It's a lot more noticeable when there are issues there. So it's okay to get a little bit more zoomed in these places, just to be sure you're getting everything. This takes time. This is the work of Photoshop. Definitely is the part that is the work. When we get to colorizing, that gets kind of fun. But, you know, just fixing spot after spot and scratch after scratch definitely gets boring, but, you know, it's a necessary part of doing this kind of work. Anything outside of his face, I'm just basically ignoring because I'm pretty sure I'm using a different background. Okay, so I think we've got the upper torso kind of there, maybe a little bit of just kind of mottled looking stuff here, and that's okay. It's okay for the picture to look a little old. It is old. What we want to do is just correct any scratches and big imperfections that we know can be easily corrected. But some of this modeling that happens on the face is sometimes a side effect of the film used. And so if you start getting too detailed with it, then the image just feels off. It doesn't feel like it was actually taken using film. So the film grain is definitely like part of what makes a photo, you know, feel a certain way. And so these old photos definitely have a lot of film grain, which is not bad. just is. Okay, let's move down to the pants and the feet. I'm using the edge of the boot here as a source to come back in and kind of recreate the edge down here. By using multiple clicks, you can kind of recreate what it looks like along the edge there. Okay, the right leg. Of course, I'm noticing more stuff back in my original starting point. Getting there is a slow process. Hey, I have a viewer. Hello. He left. Goodbye. Okay, so I think our boy is mostly corrected now then. Mostly corrected. So let's take a quick look. So from there's all these spots that were down here, a lot of scratches. Big scratch over the boot. Let you see what I'm doing here. Turning the correction layer on and off. Okay, so looks like he's mostly there. I'm going to be happy with that for now. So let me go in and just do these. There's just a few scratches on the dog here. Might as well go in and fix these before I go. This can be a little bit tougher because of the fur, so you just got to really be careful to watch the direction that the fur is going and keep the source very close to where you're going to be doing the correction. Similar to working on a face. I want it to be very close. And if you make your brush very close to the size of the actual scratch, that also helps. So then you're not, changing too large of an area. So I sometimes wonder what people are trying to show with these pictures. So obviously it's probably parents who got a portrait of their son. I guess this is in a studio setting. This background doesn't seem real, right? Seems like a fake background. So it's a picture of their son. They're trying to show a little bit that I don't know, they're proud of their dog. I guess a lot of us would do this too. Pictures of our kids with the dog. But this was, you know, people would not get portraits a lot back then. Definitely not as prevalent as it is now. So this, in some way, just saving it for posterity. Something we still do, but we just get a lot more of it, don't we? Every time we pull out our phone, we could possibly get a camera pulled up and save a picture for posterity. But when we go back and look at it, you know, somebody could gaze at this one for minutes. When we go back to look at our pictures, we look for seconds. I don't know, just things I wonder about when I'm doing this kind of stuff. Looks like maybe he's standing on the leash. Try to keep the dog still a little bit. Okay, so I think I've got the dog all repaired also, and luckily, you know, a lot of these scratches that exist over the carpet and stuff are not very noticeable. It sounds like they're doing some ladder work, so I'm just going to go ahead and end the stream for now. Got an hour and 15 minutes of seeing me spot correct. That not so fun. So if you watched through this video, hopefully you were working on something else at the time. Next